In the quiet places where thought dissolves and identity becomes transparent, something timeless whispers, "You are not what you believe," not the name you answer to, not the culture you inherited, not even the beliefs you hold with such conviction. There is something in you that precedes all of that, something beyond nationality, beyond tradition, beyond doctrine. Yogananda captured this mystery when he said, "The soul has no religion." It's a statement that disarms the mind. Religion, for all its beauty and wisdom, is a structure, a path. But the soul is not a path. It is the source from which all paths emerge. The soul doesn't speak in doctrines or dogmas. It speaks in silence, presence, and stillness. And yet, we spend much of our lives confusing the finger pointing to the moon with the moon itself. From early childhood, most of us are given labels, spiritual uniforms we are expected to wear: Christian, Hindu, Muslim, atheist. These identities can shape and nourish us, yes, but they can also confine us. And slowly, we begin to believe that the divine can only be accessed through a specific gate, forgetting that gates are human inventions. Yogananda, like many awakened beings before him, tried to free us from this illusion. He did not speak against religion, far from it. He honored the spiritual traditions of the world. But he urged us not to mistake the structure for the spirit, not to confuse the teachings for the truth itself. The soul, your true self, is untouched by human language. It existed before you spoke a word, before your parents gave you a name, before you read your first sacred text. And it will continue after all these things fall away. This truth is uncomfortable to the ego, which clings to certainty and form. The ego wants a tribe, a flag, a badge of belonging. But the soul doesn't belong. It simply is. It recognizes itself not in symbols, but in silence. Not in argument, but in awareness. It is the same in you as it is in me, as it is in a child born in a distant land, under a different sky, speaking a language you may never understand, but whose soul, if you sit in stillness, you will recognize. To know this is liberation, not from religion, but from the idea that God can be contained. Look closely, and you'll see it. How often we defend our beliefs not out of love, but out of fear. Fear that without them, we will be lost. That without a label, we will be no one. But the soul needs no label. It doesn't seek validation. It doesn't argue or compare. It shines quietly. Like a candle that has never known darkness, it simply is. The structures of religion are, in many ways, maps. Precious, ancient, and often beautiful. But maps are not the territory. You can spend your life memorizing the contours of a map, arguing over whose version is correct, and still never touch the land itself. The soul is that land. It doesn't need to be explained. It only needs to be entered, not through the intellect, but through presence. When you sit in silence, stripped of all spiritual identity, no chants, no rituals, no names of gods in your lips, something remains. That something is everything. That is the place where saints of all traditions have met, where mystics of every faith have touched the eternal. They used different words, different symbols, but pointed toward the same inner light. It is no coincidence that the greatest spiritual teachings are filled with paradoxes, emptiness that is full, death that gives life, stillness that moves. Why? Because the soul lives in a space beyond logic, beyond linear thought. Religion tries to articulate it, philosophy tries to grasp it. But the soul is known only by direct experience, and often it is only when we stop trying to define it that we begin to feel it. Yogananda was not asking us to reject our spiritual traditions. He was inviting us to go deeper, to discover the common thread that runs through all of them, not just intellectually, but inwardly, to find that unshakable center in ourselves where no division exists, no dogma survives, and no boundary remains between us and them. The soul doesn't know us and them. It knows only being. And when you look into another person's eyes and see beyond their beliefs, beyond their pain, beyond their story, you are seeing the soul. You are seeing yourself. We are not here to worship different truths. We are here to remember the one truth in many forms. And when we forget that, we trade the ocean for a drop, the sun for a candle, the sky for a window. Religions, in their highest form, are meant to dissolve the ego, not inflate it. But so often we use them to reinforce identity. I am this and you are that. My path is right, yours is wrong. In that moment, the sacred becomes political, the infinite becomes territorial, and the soul once again is buried beneath layers of belief. But if you listen closely, beneath every genuine spiritual tradition, you'll hear the same whisper: let go, return, be still. These are not instructions exclusive to one doctrine. They are invitations to shed illusion. And the greatest illusion of all is separation. When you believe your soul is defined by your religion, you risk limiting something that is, by nature, limitless. Imagine placing the sky inside a jar and saying, "This is the only true sky." It's absurd. Yet this is often what we do with truth. We containerize it, protect it, weaponize it. And in doing so, we miss the vastness that was never meant to be owned, only experienced. The mystics knew this. They always did. That's why they were often misunderstood, even persecuted, by the very institutions that claimed to preserve truth. Because mystics don't speak from doctrine, they speak from silence. They don't repeat teachings, they embody them. And in their presence, words become secondary. What radiates is something far more powerful: being. This is why the most profound spiritual moments rarely come during sermons or ceremonies. They come in moments of deep stillness, walking alone at dawn, holding a loved one's hand as they pass into the unknown, watching the stars in complete silence and remembering how small you are and how infinite everything else feels. That is the space where the soul speaks, not in words, but in knowing, not in rituals, but in presence. And so, to say the soul has no religion is not to say religion is useless. It is to say, don't mistake the doorway for the home. Don't worship the finger pointing at the moon. Look instead at what it's pointing toward, the space beyond names, the light behind all forms. Paramahansa Yogananda said, God is simple. Everything else is complex. Do not seek absolute values in the relative world of nature. In this one sentence, he touches the core of every spiritual journey, the recognition that truth is not hidden in complicated philosophies or rigid systems, but in simplicity, in presence. To say that the soul has no religion is to point toward the simplicity. It is not a rejection of paths, but a return to essence. All religions at their most authentic core are born from the same longing, the longing to know what we are beyond the temporary, beyond the form. They are rivers flowing toward the same ocean. But if we fight over which river is purer, we may never taste the sea. The soul does not care about labels. It does not care if you chant or pray, kneel or meditate, wear white or wear nothing at all. The soul seeks only one thing, union. And that union is not found in clinging, but in letting go, of certainty, of pride, of the need to be right. It is not religion that binds us, but identification with religion. When belief becomes identity, we divide what was never meant to be divided. But when we use religion as a tool, not a cage, it becomes a vessel for remembrance, not separation. This is the paradox. The deeper one goes into any genuine tradition, the more universal it becomes. The saint and the sage, the monk and the mystic, though clothed in different garments, often arrive at the same silence. So, what does it mean to walk the spiritual path when the soul has no religion? It means learning to listen beyond doctrine. It means recognizing the sacred in those who believe differently. It means embracing mystery rather than explaining it. It means letting experience speak louder than words. And most of all, it means living in such a way that love becomes your only doctrine, presence your only temple, and silence your greatest teacher. We spend so much time searching for truth outside of ourselves, forgetting that we carry within us the same light that illumines prophets and poets. You do not need to wear a label to awaken. You do not need permission to be whole. The soul is not Christian. The soul is not Hindu. The soul is not Buddhist, Muslim, or atheist. The soul is light, and light belongs to no one. When we remember this, perhaps we can begin to meet each other not as believers or non-believers, but as souls walking each other home.